old Royal Naval College in London, one of our finest historical and military monuments. Behind me is the Equestrian Centre for the Olympic Games. And the reason that's relevant is that my guests tonight are Mitt Romney and Anne Romney. And Anne Romney has a horse in that race. She actually has a part ownership in Rafalka, which is in the dressage section of the Olympic equestrian competition. Tonight I'll be talking to the Romneys about that and about the election and, well, just about everything else, including their very enduring and very touching love story. Governor, Mrs. Romney, it must feel, I don't know, how does it feel to be back at the Olympics? Because the Olympics have been such a huge part of your life. You helped turn around the Salt Lake Olympics. Are you excited to be back here now?
Oh, it's great. It's absolutely fabulous. You know, I'd never been to an Olympics before I was given the Olympic job. I mean, I'd done the same thing everybody else did. I watched the games on TV. But to actually be here and to experience not just the athletes, but also the volunteers who are working hard and excited, and then the whole community comes together. It's fabulous. And these games, you know, great weather, enthusiasm on the part of the people here in London. I think you're going to see terrific games that'll be a long time in our memories.
You've been slightly criticised for knocking the British enthusiasm, as if you hadn't picked up on much enthusiasm. Are you feeling it now?
Well, I'm delighted to see the kind of support that has been around the torch, for instance. I watched last night on BBC an entire program about the torch being run across Great Britain and the kind of crowds, I guess millions of people that turned out to see the torch. That's what you hope to see.
I made a fascinating discovery last night, Governor, which is that you are more English than I am. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
Your great-great-grandfather, Miles Romney, was born in Preston in Lancashire. My great-great-grandfather was born in Ireland. You are technically more English than me.
Well, I knew that my ancestors came from here, and I know Miles Romney and Miles Park Romney. These are the folks that came and helped settle the West. But it's I didn't realize I was more English than you are. But
do you feel partly English?
Well, I'm married to a girl from Wales,
yeah.
and I'm a guy from Great Britain, so I feel like this is home too, I guess.
And I saw a good omen as we were driving in. The road in front of the horse park where we're sitting in front of is Romney Road.
Is it really?
Yes.
Isn't that extraordinary?
Yeah.
I thought it was quite interesting.
On the Salt Lake, you've used this as an example of your business skills being able to turn things around, and that's been a theme, and we'll come to Bain Capital and that later. Why do you think the particular skill set that you had to deploy at the Salt Lake Olympics, which by common consent was a triumphant turnaround, why would that work with America Incorporated?
Well, of course, the Olympics, that's very different than the country, and a business is very different than the country. But people who learn the experience of leadership, whether in their homes, in their community, in their business, or in something like the Olympics, those lessons of leadership can be applied to other circumstances. In our case at the Olympics, we faced tough times. We built a strong team. I was able to establish with them a clear vision of what we needed to do. We tackled a budget crisis that we faced, and we were able to come together in a way through unity that produced an extraordinary success. The country is in need of a turnaround. The Olympics was a turnaround. There were businesses I've been associated with that needed a turnaround. That kind of experience of focusing on the most critical issue, building the most effective team possible, creating a common vision, unifying around that vision, and then delivering results is something I think the American people would like to see in our economy right now.
And you were heavily involved at the time, and it seemed to most people that there were two reasons that you both felt compelled to get involved in it. One, you just lost an election, maybe had a point to prove, something to do other than anything else. And in your case, you were just recovering from this devastating news about being diagnosed with MS. It kind of gave you a common purpose, and there was a very poignant moment when you were asked to allow someone who was your hero to hold the torch, and you chose your wife. Tell me about that.
Well, Anne had been diagnosed with MS in about 1998, and she was going downhill fast. Her right side was numb. She was having a hard time getting upstairs. We were looking at potentially seeing a wheelchair in her future. And so as we got closer to the Olympics, and she got stronger and stronger, we were hopeful that Anne might be someone who could carry the torch into Salt Lake City. She'd made the kind of progress that suggested to the people who knew her that she was a hero. And the people we selected for torchbearers in our games were people who'd inspired us. I noticed here in Great Britain, the theme of the games is inspire a generation.
Yeah.
Well, inspiration was really the heart of our torchbearers as well. And for me, there was no one who had inspired me more than Anne. And so I nominated her to be a torchbearer. And as a donor to the games, I got to choose one. And I chose Anne. And I can tell you it was an emotional moment for my family as she got the torch and ran it the quarter mile or so that she had the torch.
And for you, I mean, people, I don't think, have fully grasped just how sick you were or how sick you certainly felt at the time. What did that moment do for you?
It was just so symbolic because I was struggling with even walking as we came to Salt Lake 3 years before the game started. And then to know that, I don't know, that everything had come together and that there was, my life was going to be okay, and that I was getting my strength back. It was as though you recognize blessings in your life, and there's markers sometimes that are put down where you stop and pause and say, wow, look where I've come, look where I was, and look where I am now. And it was so significant for me to know that I was going to be okay, and that through all the things I was doing, and part of it, the most important part of my recovery was really the guy sitting next to me. He was the one, when I was in my really, really darkest place, gave me hope and said, it's going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
You're a man known for compromise, for doing deals, getting stuff done, not getting overly irrational about issues. You've done it in your business career, you've done it in your political career. The big issue in America right now is guns. And we had this appalling shooting on Friday at Aurora in Colorado, the worst single shooting in the history of the United States. And the usual debate, the one that I've heard since I've been in America, flare up every time these things happen, there should be tighter laws. I'll be honest with you, I'm disappointed when nothing happens each time. You know, as I think Mayor Bloomberg put it to me, what does it take to change things? You've had a congresswoman shot in the head and nearly assassinated. 70 people killed in a movie theater, hit and wounded and killed in a movie theater. Terrible things happen. What does it take to change the gun culture to mean that changing the law isn't a contentious issue?
Well, I think the idea that somehow if you had a law saying that guns were going to be regulated in some way, that would end gun violence, why there might be some merit to having that discussion. But the truth is there's no particular change in law that's going to keep people who are intent on doing harm from doing harm. The governor of Colorado, who's a Democrat, said, look, gun laws aren't going to keep evil people from doing evil things.
No, but shouldn't a political leader be the one that says, actually, we're going to do whatever it takes to make it as difficult as possible? That's what we do with terrorism. And the whole fight against terrorism is waged on making it as hard as possible for terrorists to do anything. You just try and cut the loopholes down. Here we are in Britain, so I can talk about this without feeling it's not my country. And we have very strict gun laws here, and we have very few gun murders, 50 maybe on average a year. Japan has almost no guns and has almost no gun murders. America now has 300 million guns in circulation and has the highest murder rate with guns of any of the so-called rich civilized countries. The reaction on Friday was no politician called for stricter laws, but 43% spike in Colorado in local people wanting to arm themselves with more weapons. Can't go on like that, can it?
Well, we do have a Second Amendment, and I respect the right of people to bear arms for any legal purpose. You say that we have 300 million guns. Saying somehow guns are illegal and trying to collect 300 million guns would be lunacy, folly. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in our country. People have a right to be able to bear arms. The real question is, what things can we do to do, as you say, prevent the kinds of tragedy from occurring that we saw? And the answer there is to find people who are distressed and deranged and evil, and do our very best to find them, to cure them, to help them, to keep them from being able to do harm to one another.
This guy, James Holmes, the shooter in Aurora, he wouldn't have been picked up by anything. He had no history of mental illness. He had no history of criminality, I think a driving offense of some sort. He was able to walk in, this is what I find staggering, buy 4 weapons, including this assault rifle. Then on the internet, thousands of rounds of ammunition and a gun cartridge which could hold 100 bullets, which enabled him to fire at 70 people in a matter of a minute or two. And I say, where is the movement now by political leaders in America to mean that there can't be another guy who can do that as easily?
Piers, there was a guy in Norway that went up and shot how many students? 70 students? They have very strict gun laws in Norway. But that doesn't keep a person from doing what happened in Norway, because saying to a deranged person you're breaking the law isn't going to keep them from doing terrible things and hurting people. We, of course, have all sorts of laws against bombs and making bombs, but this individual had bombs in his apartment. If he didn't have a gun, he'd have used a bomb. The idea that somehow the instrument of violence, if one could make it illegal, would keep a person from doing something illegal, I just don't think is a policy that actually will be successful.
I mean, the final point I'd make on this is when you were governor of Massachusetts, you did extend a ban on these kind of assault weapons because you did feel there was a qualitative difference between shooting and hunting and the guns you need for that and having guns where the only capability appears to be mass killing.
Actually, in Massachusetts, we had the pro-gun lobby and the anti-gun lobby come together and fashion a bill that both thought was an advance. It provided more rights for hunters and the capacity for them to carry out hunting throughout the state. So it was supported by both sides of the debate. That's one reason why I was able to support that.
But President Obama last night in a speech made a big speech which looked on the face of it, and he's getting credit for this, looked like he was moving to change things. But actually when you studied the detail, hard to find a specific, we should change this law. If he called you up and said, look, we need to get together in the wake of this, as I say, the worst ever shooting. We need to get together, do a compromise deal that just makes it more difficult for people like this to evade the system. Would you, at least in principle, be happy to have that conversation?
Piers, I don't support new gun laws in our country. We have a lot of gun laws now. We have background checks and other restrictions on gun ownership in our country. But as you say, we have 300 million guns in America. We have a Second Amendment that protects the right of people to bear arms. I support that. I think that the effort to continue to look for some law to somehow make violence go away is missing the point. The real point has to relate to individuals that are deranged and distressed, and to find them, to help them, and to keep them from carrying out terrible acts. Timothy McVeigh, how many people did he kill with fertilizer, with products that can be purchased legally anywhere in the world? He was able to carry out vast mayhem. Somehow thinking that laws against the instruments of violence will make violence go away, I think is misguided.
When we come back, we'll talk about the forthcoming election and about the opinion polls. I want to ask Mitt Romney, why is it that more people trust him with the economy than Barack Obama, but they don't find him anywhere near as likable? In East London, a few minutes' walk from Olympic Stadium, Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney is back with me now, along with his wife, Anne. Now, Anne, the good news is that according to the latest polls, on the economy, 51% of Americans trust your husband more than Barack Obama, who gets 41%. The bad news is on likability, 60% like Barack Obama and only 30% like Mitt Romney. You're one of the people who would tick both boxes, clearly. You think he's right for the economy and he's likable. What are you going to do about making Americans like Mitt more?
I don't know about that one. But, you know, the 51%, we need to obviously get that to about 78%. I mean, about who's best to handle the economy. And I think at the end of the day, that is what people are going to really feel confident about, where they're going to go in the ballot box, because this economy is just sputtering along. We're even worried that it's going to go into another recession right now. And, you know, they're going to have to trust and believe that this is the guy that's going to get the job done and get the jobs back. And they're going to have to make that decision about an economic decision. Now, I'll work as hard as I can on the likability piece, because that's wrong too. You know,
I mean, he seems a perfectly likable chap to me. I don't understand it.
No, we'll we'll get over that one.
On the economy, clearly Barack Obama has decided your weakness, your vulnerability, is your record at Bain Capital. And it's a very divisive issue and quite a fascinating issue, because when I look at some of these attack ads, it's almost like he's attacking you for being successful and rich, which is not a traditional area of battleground to an American, from an American, because America was founded on working hard, achievement, success, and making money. How do you feel about the way that you're being attacked in that way?
Well, I think there are attacks coming for being successful. There are efforts to try and minimize people who've been able to build businesses and be successful. I think we as a society have long encouraged our kids to do well in school. We've encouraged people to get promotions at work, to work harder and do better and better. We value people who take an individual initiative to start a business and build it. And I'm proud of the fact that at Bain, the consulting firm, which I helped lead in a time of trouble, and also Bain Capital, which I helped found and helped build, I'm proud of the fact that we were able to strengthen enterprises that now employ a lot of people. We were able to invest the money of pension funds and charities. That's what Bain Capital did. It wasn't our money, it was other people's money. We were hired to invest. We invested it well, and we were able to invest in some businesses which grew and thrived, some of which have thousands upon thousands of employees. This is a very exciting thing and a very positive part of my record, but really at this stage, the key is who can get the economy going? Who knows something?
Do you accept that when you're running a company like Bain that was hugely successful, no one disputes that, you're going in, taking over companies, either you're investing in them as startups or, as it turned out to be, a more leveraged buyout situation. You go in and you give them your expertise. I think your preferred way was to keep the existing CEOs and incentivize them to do better with your help. And some succeeded, some failed. People have tried to portray you as a kind of ruthless money machine who, some failed, some succeeded, you didn't care, you still got your fees, or you made a ton of money. But actually, quite a few of the companies that failed, a lot of people lost their jobs, their livelihoods, and lost money. To me, the key question is, do you know instinctively from your recollections how many of those companies that you went into would have failed anyway if you hadn't?
Well, there's no question, but that a number of places where we went in and invested, we were investing in an enterprise that was in trouble, where the future was very much in doubt for it. And we invested in one business. I think it lost 50 or 60 or more $1 million the year before we invested. And a lot of people didn't want to touch it. And we were able to go in there with the current management team, help get the business back on track as an investor. The managers really ran it, but they were able to turn it around and see a real success, and it's still around today, doing quite well, and provides jobs for a lot of people. The idea that somehow making a business profitable is different than helping people is really a foreign idea, because the whole American free enterprise system is associated with creating success, making businesses profitable. That means they can hire more people and grow. And every investment that I made while I was responsible for an investment firm, every investment was designed to try and help the business grow and to become more successful. It killed us if something was not successful. If a business we started, for instance, couldn't make it, and there were several like that, but there were several that took off in ways we never would have imagined. There were other businesses that were existing businesses we wanted to make better. Most of them we did make better. Those that we didn't, we felt terrible about. By the way, we'd lost money, investors' money. We became investors ultimately in our career. We lost our own money in some of these cases. But the key was we wanted all of them to be successful. That's the nature, by the way, of the free enterprise system. Not everything you invest in is successful. Hopefully, most are. And as the people who invested with us, the pensions and charities and college endowments and invested with us know, most of our work was successful.
And how do you feel about being married to a man who was clearly very successful, made a lot of money for the family? Things that are normally applauded in America by other Americans. So they say, good on him. But they're trying to position this now as a negative against him, trying to position you and your family as too rich, out of touch with the average Americans, ruthless businessman, all that kind of thing. You've lived and worked alongside Mitt all that time. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think the whole piece that is missing is, again, where Mitt is coming from and what motivates him and what really drives him. And if you look at what really drives him, it's compassion, it's caring for others. And for me, it's an irony that they're trying to attack him in an area where he's actually shines the brightest. And I don't think that's an area where people would ever understand that. I don't think there are many people that would have been in Mitt's position, having been in a very successful company, making a lot of money, and literally walked away from it and gone and done something as risky as running the Salt Lake Games and taking no salary for 3 years. I don't think there are many people that would sign up for that. And that...
Presumably, he could have made a lot more money if he just stayed at Bain, right?
Absolutely. It would have been a lot different.
I mean, I heard every one of the other partners is a billionaire. You must feel like you've missed out there.
Well, I can't characterize how well they've done, but they've done a lot better than I did. But I went on and did something which I cared very deeply about, and then ran for governor of Massachusetts and made a contribution there, and I'm doing this now because I care about the country.
And I think is that I wouldn't have traded that for any amount of money in the world, what the experience we had. And that is what is so wonderful.
Does none of us really annoy you that that's what people think you're all about, the Romneys? I mean,
Piers, there are people who are trying to attack success and are trying to attack our success. That's not going to be successful. When you attack success, you have less of it, and that's what we've seen in our economy over the last few years. Dividing America based on who has money and who hasn't, who is successful and who is less successful, that is not the American way. We're a nation. I heard Marco Rubio the other day. He said, we were poor living in Miami. We saw these big homes across town. My parents never said to us, gee, why don't those people give us some of what they have? They said instead, aren't we lucky to live in a country where with education and hard work, we might be able to achieve that ourselves? We're an achievement celebrating oriented nation. That's what's lifted us. It will continue to do so. And the attacks that come by people who are trying to knock down my business career or my Olympic experience or our success, those attacks are not going to be successful. People want more success. They don't want less success.
From here, Mitt Romney goes to Israel. After the break, I'll talk to him about a world increasingly in crisis. Let's move on to foreign policy. We're here in Britain. You're off to Israel, Poland. Clearly, whoever's president of the United States, hugely important, significant figure on the world stage. What is if you were to sum up your kind of overview of how you would like to conduct American foreign policy, what would you say?
Well, I go back to the early days following the Second World War, where Harry Truman and Dean Acheson, then Secretary of State, really created a foreign policy our nation has followed over the years, which is that we stand for something. We have American values. We promote them. We will be strong. We have military strength of our own, economic strength, moral strength. We link arms with our allies, and we promote our values through our strength, military and non-military, throughout the world. My own view is that having confidence in our cause and clarity in our purpose, as well as resolve in the application of our might, that those principles form the foundation of an effective foreign policy.
And there's no doubt that in the George Bush years, those 8 years, America's reputation took a pounding around the world, rightly or wrongly, because of the foreign policy, particularly the Iraq War. How will you be different as a Republican president? How will you avoid the kind of pitfalls, perhaps, that President Bush fell into?
Well, first I have to note that, as tradition for our nation, I, being on foreign soil, avoid speaking about a new foreign policy or my foreign policy or doing that in a place that would in any way detract from the president's efforts to pursue his own foreign policy. So I really can't go down that path. I can tell you that I think President Bush took action which he believed, based upon the information that was available to him, both from British intelligence and intelligence in our country and around the world, that Saddam Hussein presented a very serious threat to the world, including the potential of weapons of mass destruction. And he took action which he believed was necessary to protect our people and our friends.
America's had the reputation of being the world's policeman, certainly for my lifetime. It's quite a responsibility. Is it one that America continues to need to have? Do you need to be the world's policeman? Or as you see superpowers emerging, China, India, and others, is it time for that responsibility to be spread around a little bit?
I don't think anyone signs up for the term, when I say anyone, I don't think any of the leaders of our nation sign up for the idea of America being the policeman of the world. But nonetheless, America has been, and I believe must continue to be, the leader of the free world. And I think the free world needs to be the leader of the entire world. And being leader of the free world means having clear and defined goals and values, sharing them with other nations. I think our nation's leadership has been perhaps the greatest source of a national entity's good that you've seen on the world stage, freeing people from tyrants, spreading free enterprise and lifting people out of poverty, even in places like China. A great portion of China's strength today is the free enterprise system, which has been borrowed in some respect from our nation.
In terms of Syria, you talk about dictators and so on. People think Assad should go. There is a humanitarian crisis that's unfurling, getting worse by the day. What do you do? I mean, is the natural instinct of an American president, if you were there right now, would you be just saying, enough? We've got to get in there and take this guy out?
Piers, again, given the fact I'm on foreign soil, I really am not going to delve into foreign policy prescriptions that would interfere with the foreign policy of our current president. We all watch with horror at the reports that are coming from Syria, and look for the best avenues to prevent that from occurring. But as to my own views and what I do differently than the president, that's just not something.
I understand.
I
I respect that. I understand that's tradition. When we come back, inside the Romney family, and in particular, inside their rather unique Olympics. There are two questions I always ask most of my guests, and I see no reason why you should avoid them, Governor. And one is, I think I know the answer to this, but how many times have you been in love in your life, properly in love?
Properly in love?
Yeah.
Once.
This was the only woman for you ever?
This is the only woman I fell in love with. I mean, I was a senior in high school, for Pete's sake, so I fell in love with Ann. Hook, line, and sinker, she caught me, and I was lucky enough to bring her into my life, and we've been in love ever since.
And the same for you?
This is my true love. My true love. I was only 16 when we started dating, so for me, it was my first love and my true love. Now, he went away, and I dated other people during that time, but this is my love of my life.
Was your best deal the moment you asked this lady to marry you?
Yeah, no doubt about that. I found her early and hung on. When you see something that's better than you are, that doesn't know better, why you just hang on to her.
I mean, she has MS. It's impossible to believe that you still have this, but you do. You've survived breast cancer. She's brought up 5 kids. Pretty amazing.
Well, I love her, but she's also my hero. It wasn't just for overcoming the challenges she's had in health, but raising 5 sons, particularly my 5 sons.
I mean, I've got 3 sons, and that's hard going.
I mean, she's a remarkable person. And she put aside what could have been a very interesting career because she decided, and we decided together, we wanted children, and a number of them. And she devoted herself to them and was able to give her time to them and did a remarkable job.
Have you had moments when you feared you might lose her?
Yeah. And there was another health issue that we haven't even spoken about, but she was in emergency surgery, and I was very concerned I might lose her. I was concerned when she was diagnosed with MS that it was ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. We were both concerned about that. I told her if it's not terminal, we can handle this. Anything not terminal, we can handle. But there have been moments of fright.
The other question is, if I had the power to let you relive one moment in your life, and it couldn't be connected to Anne or the kids or family, what moment would you choose?
Probably the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Winter Games of 2002. Seeing the athletes of the world gather, recognizing the connection in the place we were celebrating those games with my family's history, following 9/11 and the tragedy of 9/11, seeing the world come together and support America was one of the great moments in my life.
I'm told that the Romney family have an annual Olympics. Is this true?
That's an overstatement by a wide margin.
Well, I'm going to come to your involvement.
A colloquial term.
Is this true?
Yes.
I hesitate to guess what sport the governor is.
They're humorous. It started out in a very, like a triathlon. And it was swimming, biking, and running. And that's
not triathlon distance.
Yes, not a real,
But you used to be a runner, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
Yes, he's still a runner. He's still a runner. He's a good runner. And then, I think the year that my daughter-in-law beat Mitt just after she'd had a baby was when we shifted from that. It's like, boy, I used to be able to beat the boys. Now they're beating me. Now the daughter-in-law's beating me. Oh no, let's find something else.
This is totally apocryphal. That is not true. That is not true. She was kind enough to stay next to me as we were across the finish line.
Okay, but I remember feeling like a little bit like, uh-oh, the old legs are kicking in. But now it really was very humorous this summer what we did because the boys decided that they weren't going to get everyone in the water and on the bike and on the run. So they did things like, how fast can you saw through this log? And they timed each other. I mean, how many nails can you get in, like, so fast? Then they did some other feats of strength.
I would imagine with 5 boys it gets very competitive.
It was hilarious, though, that the things they came up with that they were going to compete with against this year. And I believe who won it? Was it Craig?
I think Craig won, but it included shooting a certain number of baskets from the 3-point line, who could get the most in.
And they had a great deal of fun. I think more fun deciding what the competition was going to be, what the sports
standing broad jump, the shot put. We found a large rock who could heave the rock the furthest, and those sorts of things.
But it's just silly, and I mean, and the funny thing to me, and I've seen at home movies of this, is watching the little grandsons standing and watching, and to me that is the magic. That's where the magic happens, is this whole family participation, and we're all having a great time together. And the little grandsons are starting to watch and see their dads and their grandfather having fun, laughing together, just enjoying each other.
When the American athletes start competing tomorrow and over the weekend, great pride, obviously. I've interviewed Michael Phelps for Monday, and he gets very emotional talking about what it means to compete for America. What does being an American mean to you?
It means having a conviction that America is an exceptional nation, not because of who one or two of us are as individuals, but because of a nation that was founded on a very unique principle, and that is that we're endowed by our Creator with our rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that foundation has built a nation which is not just strong and great, but also good. And the best of America, in my view, is the reason that America has been able to have such an impact on the world.
Come November, people will be watching this interview tonight thinking, why should I vote for this man? Give me a compelling reason.
I think the word is trust. Trust that he'll do the right thing for this country. Trust that he has the right economic skills and the right experience to know how to turn around an economy. And trust that he will, whatever decision is being made, he'll do it in what's the best interest of America.
Would you go along with that?
She's got it right. I care very deeply about the country. I think this is a critical time in our nation's history, and I want to get America stronger with an economy that creates the jobs our people need and restore the confidence that the future will be even brighter than the past.
Governor, thank you very much.
Thanks, Piers.
Mrs. Romney, thank you very much.
Very interesting interview.
When we come back, I sneak Anne Romney away for a private chat.
For me to have been on that journey where I was so sick and so weak, and just beginning with horses with our Olympic journey, and then coming all the way back here, me being so strong and healthy and well, and having a horse that's going to be competing right there, is like the wildest dream ever. I would never have imagined.
So Anne, I managed to get you away from your husband briefly to get the real gem on Mitt Romney. What would you say about him that you know would probably embarrass him if he was sitting here with us still? What are the real qualities?
Well, how I fell in love with him was his boyhood charm. He was so lighthearted and joking, and I think people would be shocked to know that that's his real character. There's a real boy in there, and I often say that I'm the mother of 5 boys, but that's all wrong. I'm the mother of 6 boys.
Is that part of his leadership style, when he was at Bain Capital, wherever he's done, the Salt Lake Olympics, has he always been very calm?
Well, you know, I think where it goes to is this internal sense of self, where he's very confident in who he is, and he's not going to be bothered by what other people say or disagree or anything, but he also knows that as president, he's going to be doing things that may not always be understood, but are going to be always the right thing, what he believes is the right thing for the country. So he's going to act from integrity, always. And if people question his motives or everything else, or accuse him of this or of that, he doesn't let that, get him ruffled.
Is he an emotional chap? Does he?
Very, which is something that people aren't seeing.
Does he cry a lot?
I would say that he's emotional. I wouldn't say that he cries a lot. He gets that tear in the eye a lot, but I wouldn't say he cries a lot.
What kind of thing could trigger that?
Mostly anything to do with his family. Mostly anything to do with a very moving. Whether it's a hymn or a very moving piece of music, or whether it's a book that he's read that is really deeply moving to him, or even a movie. What was the last movie where you saw a Mitt tear trickle down his eye? It's hard to say when is the last time we even saw a movie. I'm not even sure I'm going to remember that because we have so little time. Actually, what we do when we're together now, because we're so rarely together, and we're trying to get through season 2 of Downton Abbey.
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it?
We love it. And so
this is a bit like Downton Abbey.
Well, here we are.
Behind us here is the equestrian centre for the Olympics. And you actually have, quite literally, a horse in the race.
I know.
Rafalka.
I know.
How did you get into this?
Stunned. The point where I was, how many years ago? 1998, 99 is when I was diagnosed with MS. I had this feeling, because I was deteriorating so quickly and I was really going downhill so fast, I thought to myself, I have to go back and do what I love. I love horses. And horses feed my soul. And I hadn't ridden for years. For like 30 years, I hadn't been on a horse. And I thought, before I get in a wheelchair, I'm going to get back on a horse. And the funniest thing happened, getting back on a horse, I started getting better and stronger. Now, it's that joy factor. There's more. I mean, a lot of people say there's the therapy, the physical, literal physical therapy of being on a horse that helps people with MS. But there was the joy piece that I don't think anyone can understand unless they love horses like I love horses. For me to have been on that journey where I was so sick and so weak, and just beginning with horses, with our Olympic journey, and then coming all the way back here, me being so strong and healthy and well, and having a horse that's going to be competing right there, is like the wildest dream ever.
Well, Mitt doesn't seem very passionate about horses. He didn't even seem to be really aware when your horse was competing.
You're right, he does. I mean, I will tell you, he is the most compassionate when it comes to me, and understanding that this is what drives me and this is what my love is. Now, I will tell you, too, that Mitt and I actually do enjoy riding together. But he's more the Western trail riding, where you just hop on and giddy up and go. No real skill involved, which is a good thing.
If I could give you a choice of Mitt Romney becoming president in November, or Rafalka winning the gold medal.
Oh, gee, that's a tough one.
It's your call.
How about I go for both?
Very diplomatic.